Mr. Knight, you want to come over here? Or you? Is there some security?
I don't think so. You got Keating. I've got my panic button. I've got my panic button. Hey, Carol. Call the meeting to order. Call the roll.
Trustee Fenton?
Here.
Trustee Dodge?
Here.
Trustee Guerra?
Here.
Trustee Rusick? Trustee Calandrello? Here. Trustee Carroll?
Here.
Mayor Peacock?
Here. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Approval of the minutes of the Board of Trustees meeting April 16th, 2018.
Mr. Chairman,
Trustee Fenton.
move to approve the minutes of the Board of Trustees meeting of April 16, 2018.
Second.
Are there any changes to the minutes? Call the roll.
Trustee Fenton?
Aye.
Trustee Guerra?
Aye.
Trustee Dodge?
Aye.
Trustee Rusick?
Aye.
Trustee Calandrello?
Aye.
Trustee Carroll?
Aye.
Mayor Peacock?
Aye.
Disabled Patriot Fund raffle license.
Mr. Mayor,
Trustee Rusick.
I move to approve issuing a raffle license for 1 year beginning May 8, 2018 and expiring May 8, 2019 to the Disabled Patriot Fund to sell raffle tickets daily at Mackey's Pub.
Are there any questions or comments? Call the roll.
Trustee Rusick?
Aye.
Trustee Calandrello? Aye. Trustee Fenton?
Aye.
Trustee Dodge?
Aye.
Trustee Guerra?
Aye.
Trustee Carroll?
Aye.
Mayor Peacock?
Aye.
The Plan Commission Chairman appointment.
Mr. Chairman,
Trustee Rusick.
I move to advise and consent the appointment of Nick Parisi as the chairman of the Plan Commission.
Second.
Are there any questions or comments? Call the roll.
Trustee Rusick?
Aye.
Trustee Dodge?
Aye.
Trustee Fenton?
Aye.
Trustee Guerra?
Aye.
Trustee Calandrello? Aye. Trustee Carroll?
Aye.
Mayor Peacock?
Aye.
Honoring Sarah Carroll, the store manager for Old Navy, Orland Park.
So Sarah, if you could please come up. So I wanted to take this opportunity to honor Sarah.
Oh, my God.
To honor Sarah tonight, I don't know how many of you know, but we had a fire at Old Navy about a week ago. And it caused about $1,000 damage. But there was nobody hurt and there was nobody injured. And a lot of the reason behind that, we had several phone calls about what a great job Sarah and her team did coming out of there very quickly. So despite having a lot of property damage, there were no people injured or got good killed. So thank you so much for doing a great job.
Honoring Village Trustee Kathleen Fenton for 25 years of service as of May 3rd, 2018.
Congratulations on your 25th anniversary with the Village of Orland Park. It's an important milestone for you and for us. This plaque represents sincere appreciation and recognition of your loyalty, dedication, and commitment to the Village of Orland Park and our residents. As an employee of Orland Park, you are one of our most valuable resources. Your efforts have contributed to making Orland Park one of the premier communities in Illinois. I'm delighted to extend to you my anniversary congratulations on behalf of the entire
First of all, I started when I was 21, so. I'd like to thank the board, and most of all, I'd like to thank the community for their continued support. Every time I'm up here, I'm doing what I feel is best for the entire community, not just for certain groups of people or whatever, but being elected at large, the advantage to that is that you always are representing the entire community. And I have to thank my fellow board members, Trustee Dodge is probably the longest next to me.
Hey, 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 hey. Overrated. Overrated.
And without staff, though, staff is the backbone to this village. We are policymakers, we're up here, but they're the ones that make us look good. Margie was getting us all the information and all the details we need to go to different places and have the history behind us, taking pictures that actually make us look pretty good. And staff always being there when there's a crisis. If I have an email, any of us have something that we get from a resident, and you send it to any one of these directors, they'll get the answers back to you within 48 hours, and we get it out to the community as fast as we can. But most of all, I'd like to thank my family. I didn't have them come tonight because, they were, anyway. It's just, I feel very honored to be standing here tonight, especially after 25 years. And I hope I can continue because I do love this community and I love the people that I represent. I may not remember your name all the time. I don't forget faces though. But it's an honor for me to be standing here this evening and representing you on a daily basis for this fantastic community that we live in Orland Park. And I also thank all of my fellow board members for their continued support.
Orland Park Veterans Commission, Military Collection.
Tom Dubleby. And in case anyone doesn't know, Tom Dubleby works as part-time here at the village, and he focuses solely on veterans issues and veterans events, and he does a fantastic job. So he's going to update us on a recent recent event that we held.
Thank you. April 29th, we did a collection for materials and postage to send to our troops who are in harm's way. And near the end of that collection, a young lady that I know and admire came in to make a donation. We had an opportunity to chat, and I introduced her to Jim Cruz, who started this collection about 6 years ago. When I introduced her to Jim Cruz, she kind of said, and I think tongue-in-cheek, "But Tom, I thought you did all this." Well, I don't. And it made me stop and think about all the wonderful things this village does. And in my humble opinion, one of the best things they do is support our veterans. So I'm here this evening to thank you on behalf of the Veterans Commission for your support of our veterans and our current military, and to give you an attaboy and an attagirl for a job well done. Sunday, April 29th, the village hosted a military collection for our troops who are deployed overseas in harm's way. This collection was sponsored by the Orland Park Veterans Commission, the Stone Church, Veterans Voices, Odyssey Golf Foundation, Girl Scouts, Boy Scouts, Cub Scouts, Veterans Garage, Cruises Crew, and the Orland Park Live Well team, which supported our military collection by hosting a dress down day. The collection results were outstanding, with over 2,000 pounds of items donated and over $1,400 donated for postage. All this to take care of our troops overseas. I want to extend a huge thank you to our Live Well team. In a very short period of time, they organized an activity that collected several hundred pounds of items and over 700 pounds for postage. It was amazing what the Live Well team accomplished in a very short period of time. We should all be very proud of them, and please, Village Manager Lamargo, please give them a huge thank you for a job extremely well done. There's going to be some notes passed out. That's your cue. Oh, you got them. Great.
Here we go.
These are the notes. Actually, are you with the press? Would you pass these out to the audience, please?
I did not tell him to say that.
These are the notes that go in the thank you packages that go over to our troops. The notes are usually from school kids and others, are included in most of the comfort packages and bring great joy to our soldiers. Our soldiers overseas when they're deployed are often deployed for extended period of time. They often miss birthdays, anniversaries, holidays, and more. Deployment means separation from family and friends and is often accompanied by feelings of loneliness, sadness, irritability, frustration, depression, and more. The notes and packages have an immediate impact on our troops, and here's a couple of examples. The Navy SEAL team wrote, "My SEAL team received packages and notes this past Christmas. After reading and rereading the notes privately and to each other, many of the notes were taped to our bunks and walls as a reminder that we are not forgotten and also to let us always remember why we are where we are." In April 2018, Jim Cruz received a flag from airmen in Afghanistan. With it came a letter and a certificate. It said that the flag has been on a mission with a B-52 bomber that had bombed ISIS targets. The letter also stated how important the letters and Christmas cards for the men and women over there. He felt our messages were heard and felt. The last thing he said, "You're a vet, and I know you'll let this flag fly." The flag is going to schools and churches and organizations to help Cruz's crew send over 10,000 Christmas cards and letters last year. And the airman is also an officer from Homewood. With the board's permission, I'd like to make arrangements to have that displayed in our village hall for a week in the next week or two. Thank you for your permission. On behalf of the 250,000 soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines currently deployed and our veterans, thank you from the bottom of our hearts for your support. A job very well done. Thank you. That was for our troops. The cards you have, if after the meeting, if Casey, if I could ask the clerk to please collect them and either put them on my desk or my mail box, and I'll make sure they get to our troops. Thank you again.
We'll take care of it, Tom. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tom.
Ask if you-
And also, Tom, I noticed that you begged for forgiveness, didn't ask for permission. Certainly learned from the military as well, so I appreciate that.
Consent agenda?
Consent agenda. Item A, payroll for April 20th, 2018. Item B, accounts payable for April 17th, 2018 through May 7th, 2018. Item C, consulting engineering services for comprehensive sanitary sewer evaluation proposal. Item D, disposal of village equipment, online auction, miscellaneous items salvaged from the village hall, recreation department, sportsplex museum, and public works department ordinance. Item E, Orland Park Health and Fitness Center locker room renovations, job order, contract proposal. Item F, Fernway subdivision roadway and ditch grading improvements 2018, design engineering proposal. Item G, OPHFC pool heaters replacement proposal. Item H, Orland Park Nature Center, Upland Design, Inc., additional construction observation services. Item I, MWRD watershed management amendment ordinance. Are there any changes to the consent agenda? I will entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman,
Trustee Carroll.
move to approve consent agenda items A through I.
Second.
Call the roll.
Trustee Carroll?
Aye.
Trustee Guerra?
Aye.
Trustee Fenton?
Aye.
Trustee Dodge?
Aye.
Trustee Rusick?
Aye.
Trustee Calendrello?
Aye.
Mayor Pico?
Aye.
Illinois Department of Transportation easements for traffic signals along US Route 45.
Mr. Chairman,
Trustee Ruzick.
I move to approve the granting of the easement to the Illinois Department of Transportation easements for traffic signal along US Route 45.
Second.
Any questions or comments? Call the roll.
Trustee Rusick?
Aye.
Trustee Fenton?
Aye.
Trustee Dodge?
Aye.
Trustee Guerra?
Aye.
Trustee Calendrello?
Aye.
Trustee Carroll?
Aye.
Mayor Pico?
Aye.
Cobblestone rezoning, site plan, subdivision, elevations, landscape plan, and special use permit.
Mr. Chairman,
Trustee Ruzick.
I move to approve a rezoning site plan, elevation subdivision, landscape plan, and special use permit for a residential plan development with modifications for cobblestone located at 8010 to 8030 West 143rd Street, as recommended at the April 16, 2018 Development Services Committee meeting, and as fully referenced below.
Second.
Any questions or comments?
Mr. Chairman,
Trustee Calandrello.
I know we do have a few residents here regarding the modifications from the Planning Commission to today's. Can you just, Carrie, briefly talk about that to answer some of those questions? If you don't mind, Mr. Chairman.
Sure. Director Filing.
Can you hear me now? Yes, since the public hearing before the Planning Commission, there have been a few minor changes made to the site plan. One of the concerns that was expressed during the public hearing was the, where would the snow be plowed? This is gonna be a private road, private development. And we were able to work with the petitioner to extend 142nd Place to allow for that for accommodation of additional snow plowing. In addition, there was a concern about fire truck access on this road, and we were able to work with the petitioner and add actually a turnaround area that was added to the site plan after the public hearing as well. So both of those concerns were addressed and were met. There was another concern that was shared at the public hearing as well, and there's a few residents I spoke to before the meeting about the soil conditions, what type of soil, compaction abilities. As you know, sometimes throughout the village we have soil issues, and I wanted to assure them as well as their neighbors that when they pull the building permit is when we require the soil boring results for compaction. And based upon the submittal of their plans is when we'll determine what the proper foundation will be. It's not rare for us to have to do additional different types of foundation, caissons, things like that. But those are issues that will be addressed and will be looked at during the building review of this project.
Are there any other questions or comments? Call the roll.
Trustee Rusick.
Aye.
Trustee Fenton.
Aye.
Trustee Dodge.
Aye.
Trustee Guerra.
Aye.
Trustee Calandrello.
Aye.
Trustee Carroll.
Aye.
Mayor Peacock.
Aye.
Centennial Park West Concert 2018.
And before we take a motion on this, I'd like to walk you guys through what developed over the last, I guess since Friday afternoon is when this developed before, since it may change the motion. Let's see here. So on the Centennial Park West concerts, which we've been talking about for a while, trying to get one pulled off, and we thought we might have two, actually, as of Thursday of last week, when two acts, both Peter Cetera on July 14th and Buddy Guy on August 25th, both pulled out within actually several hours of one another. And then basically it fell through before we could have the votes today. So over the weekend, I just picked up the phone and threw a Hail Mary a little bit and to see if I could find some other acts. And we actually found four acts, but two of them I didn't think Rat and their heavy metal, the heavy metal band would be appropriate. And then the other one was Dickie Betts of the Allman Brothers, which might have been a very good act, but he was over double what the cost of these acts were. So for a first concert, I thought it was more appropriate to be a little bit more conservative. So we have two acts that we could use for the 18th, depending on what the board would like to do. One would be the Blue Oyster Cult and Mark Farner's American Band, which is really Grand Funk Railroad. They play for about 2.5 hours. You can see the hits that both of those bands had. We would also have an opening act for both of these options, which would be Chicago 6, which are 3 Bears players plus 3 other musicians, and they seem to draw fairly well as well. The Cornerstones of Rock would be a little bit earlier, more late 60s type of music, a little bit softer than Blue Oyster Cult. There's 5 different bands there, the Buckinghams, Ides of March being probably the 2 biggest ones, but those are some of the hits you see there. They both cost the same, with the exception of Blue Oyster Cult has, we do have to pick up hotels because they're from out of town, so we would have that. And So what I did was took the most expensive, and Director Flores, this is using your spreadsheet with an updated number for the larger stage, plus the updated costs, and to show the board what the ticket prices, the various ticket prices would be, and how many tickets we would need to sell to break even, given the current estimates that we have, which are conservative. So this gives you an idea. And again, that's for the Blue Oyster Cult, which was slightly more expensive. With the idea being here is that what we could decide to do is, we have a few options. We could not do a concert, which obviously I would not prefer, which is why I worked hard to try and find these two, or one of these two acts and set a ticket price tonight. And I'm happy to, answer any questions, because I have talked to Tim Balderman, New Lenox, and obviously I was talking to actually the person that set this up was the person that sets up the acts for New Lenox. So the nice thing about the August 18th date, there's no other local acts. New Lenox has theirs on the 11th and the 25th. Pearl Jam plays at Wrigley, but I don't think our $25 or $30 a ticket is going to match with their $350 for their ticket. And then Keith Urban plays at Hollywood Casino Theater as well. The kids will be back, so everyone will be around. And given that it's an August concert, it gives us 3 months to market it and sell these tickets so that we make sure that we're at least budget neutral.
Mr. Chairman?
Trustee Fenton.
With this new proposal, does it allow the residents, the patrons, to bring their own picnics and their own beverages?
Absolutely.
Okay.
And there also will be stuff, there'll be alcohol and food for sale as well, but absolutely. So, even if we went at $30 a ticket or $35 a ticket, New Lenox charges $25, but they charge for all the food and all the alcohol, so you'd be able to bring your food and alcohol in, so.
Mr. Chairman,
Trustee Ruzick.
can you go back to the prior slide?
Sure.
Can you tell me what the highlighted items are?
That's where the break-even amount is. That's the number of tickets at those various prices, how many we need to sell. New Lenox sells 5,000 tickets, so that just tells you at the various price levels. For example, at $30, you'd have to sell 3,992 tickets to break even.
What's the 25?
What's the 25 number?
That's how much money you make. I can't sell a half a ticket.
You make $25?
You make
Yeah.
$25.
Oh,
It's a
okay,
break-even number.
Got it, okay.
Yeah.
All right, I didn't.
So it's not exactly zero, because I didn't want to sell a partial ticket.
I would have understood zero. Okay.
So,
Mr. Mayor?
Trustee Calandra.
The numbers in this don't reflect the overhead cost, which is that correct?
That is correct, because the overhead cost is not actually a cost associated with this. It's not a budget-related item.
And I guess
It's an allocated cost of all of our admin people that we allocate across everything.
I understand. I have a question for staff, but whenever you're with me today.
Go ahead.
Okay. I just have a question. So, first of all, I've been on record that I love the idea of having the concerts in the park. So we charge 15% overhead cost for every program. I guess, can you just give me a little history why we do that? Because this would be an abnormal budgeting process. Yes. Just wondering, could you kind of lay that out for me a little bit clearer?
And Murray is correct. I mean, these are costs that we would, we pay our staff for salary, so we pay it one way or another. But what we want to do is we want to capture the true cost of what the event is, and that was one of the direction that the board had given at the end of the budget season, and we apply that to all of our events, and it is charged back to the special events account for that, because it's the amount of time that admin staff, and it's not just administrative staff, but it's also coordinating outside individuals coming in as well.
But this would be the first program in this budget cycle that wouldn't have an overhead cost attached to it. Is that correct?
We're gonna still apply it to that, and because we have to capture the true cost of the event.
And that's something that I want to look into next budget cycle. I see Anne Marie there's, if we're going to charge a 15%, why it's a sunk cost? Like the mayor, I think he's trying to make the argument that, which is completely understandable, we're using those costs, but we got to be consistent. That's, I guess, one of my issues with that.
Which we are.
And Joe, the one thing is, I've never seen that admin fee before on any, like, I didn't see it when the market on the park came through or any of that stuff. I know we talked about in the last budget cycle, we're going forward to look at fully allocated costs. I've never seen an administrative fee before on any of our events.
We've had it on there. It's on all the budget sheets.
Okay. But just so you can see what that cost is, the let's just say we went at $30 a ticket, and we sold 5,000 tickets. I can show you what that would be, because it is in here. And we did $30 a ticket. So you're still, and then including the administrative fee, you're still in the positive by $11,000. So,
Mayor Peacock,
Trustee Dodge.
so I was, is Tom still here? Tom Doobie, did he leave? So when this property came up a long time ago, Tom Doobie was on the board as a trustee, so I was one of the ones that helped Tom and then Mayor McLaughlin. We went after the property. So the idea was always to have this type of outdoor event venue. And, we had folks from Ravinia come down and take a look at us, and I think we actually have more lawn space available than Ravinia does. The challenge was always putting together a business model or an economic model so we could start running bigger acts through here like what they do at Ravinia. So I've long been a supporter and a proponent of this, and I think we should try to get started. We very well might not make a whole lot of money, right? I get that, but we've done a lot of events in Orland as a community basis to try and get something moving. So I'm broadly supportive of this, but now I am unfortunately stuck with the song Godzilla from Blue Oyster Cult going through my head since I saw it in writing. And my son and I, we kind of run around on the floor because he's got a big Godzilla doll, so I'm stuck with this now for the rest of the evening.
Would you like me to bold that
But-
for you?
Yeah, and so, I guess the question I'd like to put to the rest of the board members is like, I don't have a problem doing this, and I think we should take the chance to get it started, because I'd like to see us have multiple events per year. If we do it well, and a lot of other towns do, I don't say we can make money, but we can kind of get it break even and do great stuff. So that, I accept all that. I just want to get a sense from the other board about going with these couple of acts or what else we can keep looking for. So I'd like to keep the idea open of doing a concert this year for a fee so we can try this and learn, and then let's figure out what we want to do with whatever acts are available at the time. So I guess my question for the board before we have a different motion is, what do you guys think?
Mr. Mayor,
Trustee Gear?
does this allow for staff overtime and materials, porta-john rentals?
That's all in their
police,
model here, so I'll show you.
Security, police
Yep.
overtime?
Has all of that in there, so
Who put
so it-
this estimate together?
that was staff, with the exception of the new band cost, which they didn't know, because I was told they were so, basically overwhelmed with some of the stuff they were doing. When I found this out Friday night, I just gave it a call to these guys. So this is the cost for Blue Oyster Cult. It's $40,000. $5,000 is their backline equipment that you have to ship. And this is the hotel for a couple of nights, and then that's Chicago 6, and then this is the cost of the stage. So what you see in these lines right here are the only numbers that are different, and I also upped the catering number a little bit. But everything else is still the same, which is all of the event setup for parks, police, et cetera, with overtime.
See, now, when we first or last discussed this, I was very interested and wanted to get more information on it. At the time, we were thinking about different entertainment. I think we always discussed having it, like Trustee Dodge said, having a concert there. I was excited about it, but it was always with the idea that it would bring in a higher level of entertainment than we have at the Taste. I think the Taste has fabulous entertainment. It's just not the professional level that we had hoped to bring in. I know staff had looked into it for a long time. We booked, correct me if I'm wrong, the talent for the Taste of Orland in January for an event 8 months later.
Yep, we started having that dialogue in January.
Okay, so that way we have a better selection. I have to admit, I looked Blue Oyster Cult. Maybe it's my age. I never heard of them before. So I did hear.
It is your age. They sing the song Godzilla.
It is your age.
Godzilla. Okay, so I'd be curious to ask how many people in this room have ever heard of them. And then I had a friend look it up. I said, is it just me? Because she used to work at Odyssey. And I said, what do you know about this band? And she played it for me, and they're listed as heavy metal online. I said that to you earlier. Heavy metal is headbanging stuff, It might be a success. it would be my hope that rather than rush it with whatever is left, because as you say, the Peter Cetera and Buddy Guy had been considered, but then we lost them. They got bookings elsewhere. I'd rather not rush it, especially when it's unbudgeted, and do it right the first time. Next year, where we would have a better opportunity to get talent that everybody would recognize and be happy to support. I just think especially too, I'd like to budget for it. So that's where I'm at.
Mr. Chairman?
Trustee Carroll.
To kind of help Trustee Dodge's question, like I've said 3 times now, I've always been in favor of the idea of higher level entertainment at Centennial Park West. I have, however, in the last couple of meetings expressed some reservations about doing this, like Trustee Garrett just said, on a kind of a short basis. Although when we met recently, I think on Friday, I told you I would keep an open mind about it and kind of stew on it over the weekend, but I was kind of drawn back to Trustee Ruzik's comments at a previous meeting, and that it would depend on what the entertainment was. Now, I wasn't picking Tony Bennett as my favorite, like young Mr. Calandrello down there.
Wish list.
And I have heard of Blue Oyster Cults, and I've got a friend in the Ides of March.
Oh, I know them.
Yeah. But I was a little bit more excited when it was Buddy Guy, Orland Park's own. I was a little bit more excited when it was Peter Cetera from Chicago. I just think, kind of like what Trustee Gira said, on short notice, not having gone through the normal budget process, the bands we're talking about tonight, I would be a no for now, with great support for it for next year.
And I guess the one thing I would say about the Peter Cetera and Buddy Guy, they are double the money, which would make it even harder to obviously have a successful first event. The other thing is, when speaking to New Lenox, they sold out Blue Oyster Cult without any issues. So we're 3 times the size. So
I could play Godzilla now for the. Sorry.
Mr. Mayor?
Trustee Ruzick.
So I did say, as Trustee Curl pointed out, it would depend on who the band was. And what I've discovered since then is you could talk to every person in this room and they would have a different opinion. I mean, music is art. What I love and what you love could be vastly different. So I don't know that we're ever going to agree on a band. I think our job is to agree on the concept for this year, if we're willing to try it. My question for staff is, do you think you could pull this off in 3 months?
That's where the challenge is, because as Trustee Garrett mentioned, that we start planning things 8 months beforehand. So in some of our events, we start planning right after the event is over for the following year. And right now, staff has been focused on getting the pool open, getting stuff ready for the taste, the 4th of July Spectacular, the runs, the concerts in the park that we have going on. So that's why we would need a yes or no, because it's going to be a challenge. Do that. I mean,
So is the answer yes? Is that what you're saying?
Well,
Or-
at the end of the day, it's the board's decision, and if the board directs us to do it, we'll figure out a way. But it's just going to be a challenge for staff. Because it's not just recreation. I mean, it's encompassing other departments and outside agencies, the fire district, all that.
I'm not going to get into what band's good and what band's not, because I got everyone saying Tony Bennett. But anyway, I'm not going to go with the names of any bands. But I just think that I'm just a little hesitant based on all the challenges we have financially. It didn't go through the normal budget process. And again, I love this idea. And next year, we're going to make sure we have these events. I just, we need the fact is we need 5,000 people to break even if we include the overhead, which all events we have that. And I know New Lenox, the first couple of years didn't make money. I think they're still breaking even, and that's what our staff reports to us. We cut 13 events this year in Parks and Rec, and I just feel like we can't just put this in at this time. Just a financial, being good stewards of the taxpayers' money. I don't think it's the right call to do it this time. And the money we would use to pay for this is for parents' grants. So we're going to take away, say, from a retail base or a business that we're trying to help make sure they survive. And I just don't see it this year. Again, I support the idea. I can't wait to do it next year with staff, and we'll have enough time to plan. It's just not a good financial decision at this time for me.
Any other comments?
I just, does Kathy want to weigh in?
I have a comment, if you don't mind. If gambling was approved, it can pay for those.
So, yeah, we're not talking about gambling at this time, so.
All right.
So I guess my final comments are, I want to remind everybody that on February 5th, and I had vetted this with every board member, that we were going to try and implement a concert series at Centennial Park West because it's an underutilized asset. That was back in February. We have the opportunity to do exactly that, which was a common goal back then. And I understand the concerns about revenue, but I think that's a bit apples and oranges because this should be a budget neutral event. And even if there was a slight loss on it, we lose money on a lot of our events that we do certainly any one thing that we do for free. And one of the things we need to look to do going forward is we need to find ways to put events that the community likes and they come together for, and this would be something unique to the village to come in, bring your own food, sit down 4.5 hours of music that is budget neutral, that is not costing us a bunch of money. And I didn't hear anything, when we were spending $200,000 to fix a mold problem. There wasn't a whole lot of pushback on that. I'm not sure that the parking garage, we're getting a whole lot out of that. So we've taken a lot of risks for other things too, in the past. We've taken risks on 9750, which we got out of this year. So there's a lot of things we've taken risks. This is a relatively modest one for something that's enjoyable for the community. If we can do this successfully, we're going to create revenue for other events, which just takes that much more budget pressure off. Orland Park is not going away because of the Carson, Sears, Toys R Us business problems. We need to continue to let the marketplace know that we still are going to do these events. We're still going to do fun things. We're still going to do things for the village and for the people of Orland Park. And in this case, if we can do things that are budget neutral, I think all the better.
So, I guess Mayor McLaughlin, Mayor Pecaw, there's, it's kind of the issue is I'd like to keep this one alive, right? And maybe we can just do a quick census. Do we want to try this year? I'd be in favor of us trying to find a way to get this done this year. I don't know if the full board does that. So before we kill or table or deny a motion, can we just do a quick consensus? I'd like to try something this year. Don't have exactly what that's going to be, but I'd like to try it.
Mr. Chairman?
Trustee Rizek?
I am okay with that, but I think we need to make the decision tonight to
I
give
agree.
staff to go ahead one way or another.
Because Trustee Dodge, to your point, at the last meeting, it was discussed that we would do an informal poll to the board to see if they wanted to go up or down when we identified Peter Cetera. It was 4 solid no's. Trustee Calandrella wanted me to follow up with the board members, and was it because of the talent or was it because of the situation with the budget? It was not because of the talent at all with that. So I'm fine with, what do you want to do is fine, but staff needs to know, because then if that's the direction of the board, then we'll have to do it, and we're just going to find an act and work through our things.
I agree with Trustee Rizek that we need to make a decision tonight. After making these calls, like I said, there were 4 acts. I don't think there's going to be anything else popping up.
Mr. Mayor?
Trustee Guerra.
Again, after the last, as the village manager stated, we said, the vote was kind of split in the middle, and everybody said, okay, get back to Joe and let him know exactly how we feel, so that, because time is of the essence. That was on Monday night. Wednesday was when we got the announcement that Carson's was closing their door. Now, we knew Carson's was in trouble, yes, other stores are in trouble too. But we didn't know that they would close. We hoped they'd be bought out, or we hoped it would be further out in the future. That was the game changer for me on the concert. I love the idea of a concert there. Personally, I'm willing to, put up a little more money if we budget for it and get a higher level talent than this. This is 60s, 70s stuff. I'd like to get something a little more current. But that being said, Carson's was a game changer in my mind because it wasn't budgeted for. If we had budgeted for it, we could go ahead and that would be a different thing. And to your point about, revenue neutral, if it rains, it's not. And this is 2 weeks after the taste. I would rather have our staff continue to focus on a successful taste that I think everybody enjoys. It's free to the community. People seem to thoroughly enjoy it, and I'd rather focus on that just 2 weeks before the proposed date for this.
We need a motion to vote on then, so.
Mr. Chairman?
Trustee Fenton?
I wasn't making a vote, sorry. I was one individual who stated, along with Trustee Dodge, that our main concern was when we first talked about this, when the land became available, the important part was that the people would be able to bring their food, their picnic and their beverages, enjoy just like a Ravinia. My concern, which now that apparently from griping enough, it got changed, but my concern is, no offense to the Blue Oyster Cult, but I think that's going to be an issue. My issue is probably with the entertainment. I mean, I'm really glad that people now can do what I requested and what Trustee Dodge wanted to, but I'm just really concerned about that particular band bringing in the money. And granted, it may have worked in New Lenox or whatever, but I don't know. Now Hermits, maybe that might be a better one. I don't know. He's still alive, but I don't know. That's just my opinion.
So, did somebody want to put a motion on here so we can call this and get it over with?
I'll make the motion. Mr. Chairman?
Sure.
I move to approve a budget adjustment in the amount of $200,000 from the AIG account to the special events accounts.
Second.
Any other comments? Call the roll.
Trustee Rusick?
Aye.
Trustee Dodge?
Aye.
Trustee Fenton?
No.
Trustee Gira?
No.
Trustee Calendrello?
No.
Trustee Carroll?
No.
Mayor Peacock?
Aye. The motion fails 4-3.
Sponsorship agreement between the Village of Orland Park and Payless Health and Fitness, Loyola Medicine approval.
Mr. Chairman?
Trustee Calendro.
I move to approve authorizing the village manager to sign the sponsorship agreement between the Village of Orland Park and Payless Health and Loyola Medicine.
Second.
Any questions or comments?
Mr. Mayor?
Trustee Ruzick.
I would just like to thank staff for negotiating this and for Payless Health and Loyola. This is excellent news that we have a sponsorship of this level for, I think, the first time.
Yes.
Right? So we're very excited to be able to have Loyola and Payless be sponsors.
Mr. Chairman?
Trustee Calendro.
I just want to echo Trustee Ruzick's comments. I think this is phenomenal. We said, Beck, your budget got cut. We need you to find the funding, and you came through with this event. I know there's other events that hopefully we're having sponsorships to be announced, but I just want to thank you from the bottom of my heart that we're getting this money in. So I know Nancy worked hard, and everyone worked hard, the staff, to making sure to lock down this funding. And I hope that when the budget cycle comes, all your work stays with you. I think any funds that may roll over because of sponsorships should stay with REC. So it'd be more as our budgetary gets tighter, if you get the sponsorship, it's just stay in REC. At least that's my personal opinion, because you're doing the hard work for that and you're working for other events. It's one of those things where you stepped up to the plate. Last year we had to cut 13 programs, events, so I'm glad that hopefully that stopped the bleeding so we can continue our family, a community that we love. So I really congratulations on that. Thank you, Nancy and crew. And I don't think you need people to know the amount, but the sponsorship was $75,000.
Are there any other comments or questions? Call the roll.
Trustee Calendrello?
Aye.
Trustee Carroll?
Aye.
Trustee Fenton?
Aye.
Trustee Dodge?
Aye.
Trustee Gira?
Aye.
Trustee Rusick?
Aye.
Mayor Peacock?
Aye.
I would just add that we are also working, we're not done yet, we've been meeting with some other organizations too as well to get some major sponsorships. But yeah, so between Director Flores and her team and Assistant Village Manager Freiling, the team has just been phenomenal with really communicating the stuff and bringing people in.
Video gaming within the corporate limits of the Village of Orland Park ordinance.
Mr. Chairman,
Trustee Carroll.
ordinance number, please.
5296.
I move to pass ordinance number 5296 entitled an ordinance creating a new chapter 18, video gaming of Title 7, business and license of the Orland Park Village Code and making other changes relative to video gaming within the village.
Do I hear a second? All right, I'll second it. So the motion's been moved and seconded.
Trustee Carroll?
Hang on.
We need some discussion first.
There definitely needs to be discussion
Yes.
first.
I didn't. So, first and foremost, we'll open it up to the public. And what I'll say to the public, reminder, you have a 3-minute limit, number one. Number two, we had 3 special meetings talking about this issue, plus a referendum meeting talking about this issue, and some of you spoke at every one of them. In the interest of time, we understand your position, and you don't need to speak again. If you so wish to, you can, but in the interest of time, I would ask you to defer. With that said, I will call people up one at a time. Jim Harmoning.
Thank you. I've spoken to a lot of you, so I want to just say, whether you were for or against it, I'm so happy to see so many people here. And it's been a tough battle, but I have to give credit to our local restaurants. I'm very happy with them and how they've acted in this whole endeavor in this referendum. I think one of the things I want to say is, after reading the ordinance, is the most recent one isn't online. So one of the things I looked at was, if it is going to pass, we should make the longest serving licensees get the licenses first. Those are the people who put their blood, sweat, and tears into our community. So if it's going to happen, which I don't want it to happen, I would prefer it not happening, but if it does, the people who should be rewarded are the people who've been in Orland Park the longest. I know we have a lot of people who want to speak, so I'll keep my comments to that and thank the board.
Thank you for your comments. Michael Lorenzo.
Hey, Joe, kill that.
I can kill that. I got it.
He's got it.
Thank you, Board.
Hey, Mike.
I will say I went into restaurant business to work 70 hours a week and 6-7 days a week, but this is a hard job you guys have up here because I've seen what's going on. This is a very controversial, obviously it's a controversial subject. You know, where we stand with it, I'm a restaurant, I represent Papa Joe's. It's a family business. I've been here for 25 years, 26th year this year. I have friends on every one of this board, no matter what side, and out here also. And so do my colleagues, you know, Mackey's and Patty B's and the Irish Patriot. These are all family businesses. Are we all going to go out of business if there's not video gaming? No, we're not. We're going to still stay here. We love this town. That's the reason why we're here. But I will say, it's already here. It's across the street in Orland Hills. It's across the street in Homer Glen. It's in Tinley. It's here. We're not creating new gamblers. These are the same gamblers that are just leaving our town and going there. That's the reason why we'd like to have it here, to put us on an even playing field. As far as budgeting, as far as revenues and stuff like that, no offense, Board, this is very low-hanging fruit. You guys can get in here and pick up this $475,000 a year at a very minimum, that's what the revenue will be, and we all know that. No one's taken into consideration when myself or my wife sit down at a bar, or we go in and she wants to play for puts $20 in the machine, and we're going to go have dinner, or whoever, all of our customers. I love this community. I donate as all of our board members do. We represent a small business association. There's a lot of things that are on the horizon. This is something that's very, very easy, and I think it would be very, it's 5 machines per location. It's not a craps table and and everything else. I'm just saying, I think that would be, I think it would be a plus for the community and absolutely for the budget. So, thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments. Joe Mulvey?
I don't think they heard you.
What was the name?
Joe Mulvey.
Everyone. My name is Joe Mulvey. I live at 7830 St. Pines Road. And I just wanted to bring a clarification to what the mayor had indicated on Town Hall Meeting number 2, in which I'll do my best to directly quote it, and certainly, Mayor, please provide the clarification. A referendum is misused when making policy decisions. The people elected us to make policy decisions, and that's what we intend to do. I had distributed a copy from the February 3rd, 2018 Economist, and it talked about this very topic of referendum. In fact, referenda today has been a trend globally in terms of government. And so all I offer today is this is a business case that, to the contrary, there were 5 examples that were cited globally. It cited Austria, Italy, the Netherlands, Greece, and most notably Brexit. And why I ask this board to take serious consideration to Brexit as a business case is if you take into consideration in the distribution of the vote, the people voted the following way. Shall the UK leave the European Union? Again, let me emphasize, an economic-based referendum, 51.8%. Shall the UK remain in the EU? 48.11%. A spread of 3.9%. But the people spoke. In March of 2019, the UK is required to have everything in place. For that, it will allow for a transition for December 2020 to have it completed, and it will then be able to begin negotiations independently with other nations. So my only point is, it's a spot-on business case, and I'm asking the point being the people have already voted on this. I don't discount what our small business neighbors are making into their contention. Economically, it doesn't work. The people have spoken, and I ask this board to honor the people's vote. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Winnell Whitmore?
Keith, I don't think they can hear you.
Winnell Whitmore.
Good evening. I'm a member of this community for 27 and a half years. I started working in this area in 1991. I searched for 6 months before I chose Orland to live in. Not for a day, not for 6 months, but to live here. I was looking for a community. And the Village of Orland sounded right, it looked right. I live on Wheeler. I don't want to see introduction of another possible addiction, because let's face it, people, a house not even 10 blocks, a house not 10 doors from my home on Wheeler The family had to move out because the owners were addicted to gambling. I don't want to see that happen. I know it's not necessary. I know people should have control, but we don't need to be going after whatever this may introduce into our community. I don't want to see it, and obviously a lot of other people are here for the same reason. Don't. We voted on it once, we voted on it twice, and now we're saying, don't reverse what we voted for. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Terrence Kamadeka.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and trustees. My name is Terrence Kamadeka. I've been a resident of Orland Park for 42 years. And when I moved out here 42 years ago, I used to live on 63rd and Cicero in the city. And Fort City used to have this place called Peacock Alley. It was in the lower level of Fort City Mall. And they had this big this big arcade where you could play pinball machines and Pac-Man and Atari, all those good games. And when I moved out to Orland Park says we don't have no pinball machines in Orland Park. No, you had to go over to Bremen Town Mall to play video games and pinball machines. And back then, Orland Park was a conservative town. And they could be conservative because they had a mall that generated money. They had lots of car dealerships that generated money. But things are changing. And I don't want to see my taxes go up because revenue streams are going down. So if it happens, if you do allow this video gambling, I hope that you'll have some good code enforcement policies. No temporary retaining walls, because I've been to restaurants in Mokina, and I've actually seen the retaining wall fall over because they didn't have it mounted correctly. I'd like to see an actual room that the machines are in, where you walk in a door and you go in. This way the video machines aren't intrusive. Because if you go to a place like 97 West, I think it's called, and you got your prime rib on the table, and you got your wine, and your double baked potato, and you got your prime rib, you don't want to hear the machines. You want to be able to enjoy the tablecloths and the candles and the environment. So if you're going to do it first class. Orland Park has done a lot of things first class in the past. I hope we'll do things first class in the future. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you for your comments. Maurice Noonan.
Hello, my name is Maurice Noonan, and I just wanted to express my disappointment that the results of the referendum are being ignored. We don't need video gambling here. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments. Tom Mulvey.
What was it, Keith?
Tom Mulvey.
Good evening. My name is Tom Mulvey. I live at 14148 William Drive, Orland Park, 60462. Again, I'd like to thank all of you for giving us the opportunity tonight to speak to you. I'm here on behalf of, I am a small business owner, and I know what it's like to have to work small business. I know the hours you have to put in to be a small business. I also am a firm believer in the economic development of Orland Park. You know, I've been up here before this board before. Anytime I've been up here has not been anything without bringing you fact and participating with you. I sponsor events, and I've done a lot to show that I have investment in this town. I don't want video gambling here, but I have reason for it. And all I want to be here tonight is to allow you to make your decision, but I wanted these people to know that these facts that I'm going to bring up to you very briefly are facts that you're all aware of, because I've made it aware to you through a lot of diligent work. First of all, it's clear that historically, you've been given 9 pages of references in regards to the fact that these games target seniors. You know what? Sure, seniors should be able to play games, absolutely. But we, as a village, and specifically the people that we elect, should be here in due representation to all people that live within the village. You're here to operate within their best interest. And so we know in a situation in which, and I won't go into it at length, but I'm welcome to if anybody has questions, that seniors are prone to the gambling addiction through a variety of reasons, and the games that are currently being made through millions of dollars of investment do target these people as well as problem gamblers. In fact, one of the facts that they bring out here, Natasha Dow, who's an expert on gambling addiction, tells you that it's proximity as well as accessibility. The games have changed. You no longer see the pull handle anymore. First of all, there's no odds on these games. Every game is an independent play. So the people that are left to believe that this is a hot machine, I'm going to win, I'm going to win.
1 minute.
Okay. You have that information. The games are false, and it's called false wins. You were given a list of all the villages that are retail-oriented, and the fact that how many of them don't have gambling, and the reasons why. Their mayors are quoted. You were given the social costs of gambling. You were given a study which I will be willing to discuss with anybody, that the scientific method used on that University of Illinois study makes this a very, very pertinent study, because they had to use Chicago as an area because they were able to create a study. They were able to a control group as well as an experimental group. You were given the Warren Buffett article, in which Warren Buffett tells the parable of the St. Bernard, which I ask all of you to Google. Warren Buffett is a relatively well-known economist. He says that the nature of gambling is merely a transfer of funds. Anything that you think is going to be coming as revenue is being transferred from other sources. And his parable of the St. Bernard puts this in very easy terms to understand. And finally, you were given information about the companies that we're aware of that are coming into this village to do business. They've already invested thousands, and they have a history of investing money in the very people that make decisions in order for them to exist. So I just simply throw out to you that if this is what you choose tonight to do in regards to economic development for our village, please do it knowing all the information that you've already been given. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments. Linda Sappin. Linda Sappin.
First of all, thank you for giving me the opportunity at the last minute to speak. My husband and I have been residents.
Margie, the microphone.
Here. How's that?
Better.
Okay.
Better.
Hi. My husband and I have been residents of this wonderful, wonderful community. I don't want to tell you exactly what year we've been here since, because you'll know how old I really am then. But since the late 70s, we've watched the community grow and expand. There's been many decisions made that have been both voted for and voted against by the citizens. About the video gambling, I myself, I never was exposed to it until I went to Las Vegas last year, and I was a little leery of it. I don't have a gambling problem, but somebody brought up a really good issue. I mean, to me, it seems kind of innocuous and non-threatening. I wonder if anybody has looked into, and this is really a good point, if crime has increased in communities because of the video gambling. I understand the board's wanting to get more revenue. There's a lot of revenue right now from video gambling that is going to Tinley Park. I think Hickory Hills has it, and another couple of communities. I think it's a good source of income. But the thing that I think is important that has to be answered is what's going to happen to the crime rate. We have an awesome police department. They do their job, they do it great, but I think you need to really research if there's going to be an increase in crime. Because like I said, I think and I understand the need for revenue. How much of that money from the video gambling games is really going to go into the community? I will say this, and I don't mean to be rude because you have made a lot of great decisions. I will tell you that if you decide along that route, after you've made the decision about video gambling, to either have a riverboat or a dry dock riverboat, that I will fight you on, and I will win, because there's been a lot of crime increased in communities. So I don't know what to say. Like I said, I understand the need for revenue. I think you need to look into the crime statistics more. Okay? That's it.
Thank you for your comments. Tim McCarthy. Tim McCarthy.
Good evening. I'll be brief because I've been here so many times. I lost my voice last time, but the most important thing I want to thank even our opposition, because what a beautiful lesson in civics. We had numerous meetings. We had 3 town hall meetings. We had a referendum. This is one of the greatest examples of civics in our history we accomplished here in Orland Park over this one issue. The issue that is the most important issue is competition for our small businesses, period. The message that we have requested consistently has been competition. If anyone in this room thinks the 13 families that own businesses well over $10 million in this town are going to do something to hurt the character or the name of Orland Park, I feel sorry for you. We talk about economic development. We have people closing stores every day. This is a message to any entrepreneur or small business that's thinking about coming in this town and operating a business unrestricted. We are currently restricted. Dr. Mulvey, if they told you you can't work on somebody's leg, you're a chiropractor, I know. That's just what it's like. We are limited in our ability to compete, period. Free us. Give us the opportunity to compete. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments. So I have Pete Collins here. It says ordinance wording. Is this for the gaming issue? Is this for a different issue? Okay. So I'll open it up for the board to discuss. Are there any comments? I'm sure there are.
Mr. Chairman.
Trustee Carroll.
First of all, I know there are people on both sides of this issue who feel very strongly about their position. I know they care a great deal about the Village of Orland Park. My family moved here when I was 13 years of age, and I've lived here ever since. When I finished school, I began working here. I decided to start a business here. My wife, whose family moved here the same year as mine did, and I decided to raise our children here. And we continue to call Orland Park home. I've done volunteer work here in the Village of Orland Park since the mid-1980s, and I also care a great deal about this village. My law practice involves me representing a lot of small, family-owned businesses here and in other villages. Between my years on the Police Department of Orland Park, interacting with the business community in the village, and the years of my law practice, I've seen firsthand how significant of an impact the decisions the village board makes can have on our business community. I also represent businesses in other villages, as I mentioned, and I see how the policies in each of them impact their business community. In my estimation, there is no policy currently that creates as much of a competitive disadvantage for our businesses as our gaming ban. I personally have spoken with a half dozen businesses in Orland Park that are contemplating either closing or moving to neighboring villages that allow gaming to continue to compete with their business. I began researching this issue and surveying residents and business owners about the gaming issue shortly after I was elected to this board. Approximately a year ago, this board began discussing it openly as well. We promised the public that we would hold a series of town hall meetings to gauge the public opinion on it. Each of us on the board have spoken to countless people in the village and received hundreds of phone calls and emails. 2 conflicting advisory referenda appeared on last month's ballot. Both before and after the election, we've spoken to numerous people who were confused by the referenda. I've talked to dozens of people who realized after the fact. I've talked to dozens of people who realized after the fact that they had cast an improper vote on one or both of the referenda. The results were 52-47% on the one and 51-49% on the other. Approximately 600 votes, or approximately 1% of the registered voters of Orland Park, differentiated the first referendum, and approximately 200 votes, or 0.4% of the registered voters of Orland Park separated the other. Despite arguments to the contrary, this surely was not a decisive vote, nor a mandate of any proportion. For the anti-gaming group, this is clearly an emotional issue. I've watched neighboring villages implement gaming in a reasonable and well-regulated fashion, and I've seen other villages that have not. In the former group, I would challenge anyone to say they've noticed a recognizable difference to the character of those communities. And I reject the premise that a strictly regulated gaming ordinance would change the character of the Village of Orland Park. This board has been forced to contend with the shrinking of the brick and mortar retail industry that has been at the core of our revenue engine in Orland Park. Sears, Toys R Us, Carson's, and more have announced closings in Orland Park, and every indicator is that the Amazon effect will continue to negatively impact retail sales tax across the nation. Granted, Orland Square is among the most successful of the region's shopping centers, but the industry is expected to continue to decline into the future. All reasonable sources of revenue must be explored by this board. In that context, my colleagues and I worked with our attorneys to draft what appears to be the strictest gaming ordinance in the state of Illinois. We've had our police chief, to respond to the one woman that just spoke, survey neighboring municipalities to assure us that there has been no noticeable increase in crime in areas that have allowed video gaming. And we already have one of the most restrictive sign ordinances in the region, which would prohibit the flashing signs that so many residents have told us they don't want in Orland Park. I disagree with the comments I've heard from the anti-gaming crowd that passing a gaming ordinance is ignoring the voters. Both referenda were advisory referenda only. I promise you that each of us has considered the advice of those referenda votes, confusing and possibly inaccurate as they were. We also considered the comments in our town hall meetings, as well as the conversations, telephone calls, and emails we've had with hundreds of you over the last year. This is clearly a sharply divided issue, and after considering all of what I've seen and heard, I have decided that voting in favor of a highly restricted video gaming ordinance is the proper course of action. Thank you.
Before we move forward with any other board comments, please keep your comments to yourself when the board is talking. We did the same for you when you were speaking, as did people who opposed what you were speaking. We deserve the same respect. Thank you. Trustee Guerra.
All right, first, as far as the referendum goes, it was flawed. There was no question in my mind.
Hey, Pat,
It should not have.
I don't know if everybody can hear you.
Oh. All right. I think the referendum was flawed because, first of all, it should not have been during a primary. I know a number of people, and maybe some of you here, who don't want to vote in a primary because you choose not to identify with either party, which is required. So a number of people chose not to vote. Also, the township residents, we understand, got the same ballot as the village residents did. So it's hard to determine that. Now, that said, I support the small businesses in town. I've lived here a long time, and the mom and pop businesses are the backbones of our community. They support the baseball teams. They contribute to special rec events. You go to what was known as Norm Myers Day for Orland Days, and it's Papa Joe's donating, I can't imagine how many pizzas, 300 pizzas?
350.
To feed the special rec population that comes in from all over the metropolitan area for that day. Our small mom and pop operations are the backbone of Orland Park, and I sympathize with this. They ask us to level the playing field for them. I get that. I understand that. That makes sense for me. The proposal we're looking at is to offer 20, I think is how it's written, 20 licenses for gaming. We have 60-some Class A business licenses in town. So the problem with this, as I see it, is that we're creating an unlevel playing field within our community then. We give out 20 licenses, what about the other businesses that may be across the street from one that has it, and they don't? So now we have a special elite tier, and the transition too, I question, because it goes with the building rather than with the operator. That again, businesses might want to wait, they might be willing to wait for one, but they won't have that opportunity until at some point it's expanded beyond the 20 licenses. That's a problem for me. I don't want to put our own businesses in an unlevel playing field within our own community. So for that reason, I would say it should be available to all businesses with a Class A license or none. And I can't support all, so I have to say none.
Trustee Ruzick?
Okay, so when I started, or when we started considering this approximately 9 months ago, I was adamantly opposed to this issue. But I decided I would try and keep an open mind, talk to residents, talk to businesses, visit some establishments in neighboring communities, visit communities that had this, and I was surprised. I was surprised that there wasn't a more vocal opposition. I did find it to be about evenly split, which is what I believe the referendum more or less showed us, give or take a couple hundred votes. However, I was always concerned about two issues. One, signage and restrictions, and what our town would look like if we allowed this. Well, guess what? We found out we cannot treat establishments with gaming any differently than we treat any other business in terms of signage. So for that reason, we cannot prohibit a business from advertising their gaming if we allow it. My second issue that I've always been concerned about is limiting the number. Right now, this ordinance has 20. For me, that's too many. Could I live with probably 15? Possibly. But what I don't have is a firm legal opinion that could withstand a challenge. My understanding was we hired outside counsel to give us that opinion. I thought we would have had it by today. I haven't seen it. And without that, I cannot vote on this because I don't think anyone here on this board wants to see this in 67 establishments throughout the village. And if we don't know that we can contain it to a limited number, I can't vote for it. So for that reason, I'm not saying I'm not going to vote for it, but I'm not going to vote for it tonight because I need to see a legal opinion that this cap is enforceable.
Mayor Pico?
Trustee Dodge?
So this has been talked about for a while, and I think most of the folks in Orland Park know that I try to approach it both sides. So I've spent a fair bit of time talking to both sides on this issue. And I actually spent most of this afternoon calling folks that had reached out to me via email just to have a quick chat, and discovered a couple of interesting things, and I'll summarize that. So one, I don't know if most folks know all of the restrictions that have been put into this ordinance, as Trustee Carroll had alluded to. Not the least of which is any establishment that wants to do this, they're going to have video cameras on every customer that goes in, plus video surveillance of the gaming area, and our police department would have access to that video for at least 30 days. So I think that goes to, quite frankly, folks, we don't want to screw up our town either, right? Let's just all be clear about that. I think we all agree. So there's a number of things that are in this ordinance. As I talked to folks today, I think they started to get a better sense for what we are trying to accomplish. And there's actually some points of agreement as I kind of went through the call list and talked to folks on both sides of the aisle. So everybody cares about Orland Park. So there's an intense interest for all of us to see what best is for the entire community. This is starting to feel like we all recognize there's a lot of good things about Orland Park, and everybody's sensitive to making sure that we continue that. So people agree on how much they care about Orland Park and what they'd like to do. Second, I didn't get a whole lot of pushback from anybody I spoke with about the plight, if you will, of the smaller businesses, right? In no uncertain terms, This is not a great county or a great state for economic development these days, right? It's tough. And especially in Cook County, where businesses have a disproportionate share of the tax burden compared to residences. So these folks that have invested in our town and part of our lives, they're important to us and they're hurting. But what's interesting is everybody was concerned about what may happen. And the operative word here is may. We, as Carol Ruzich said, we're not sure if we allow a little bit of video gaming, does it then explode on us because of the way the Illinois courts would rule? Thank you much, State of Illinois, for allowing gaming in the first place, right? And we're all speculating, right? Those of us that are sort of okay with the idea of gaming, and I'll explain that in just a second, or those who are adamantly opposed to it for a number of reasons, we're all kind of wondering what's going to come, so we don't know. So those are the points of agreements. Points of disagreements, obviously, do you have crime? Do you feed addictions? Do you create all the usual problems? And so we're going to have to work through that as a community. Let me give you my opinion, and I think I've been pretty consistent on this from the word go, which is gaming is adults doing illegal activity with their money. Let me say that again. Video gaming, gambling, whether it's in Vegas or it's down the street in Tinley Park, it's like it's an adult spending their money as they so choose to live their life. God love you, right? God love you. You know, and we are disadvantaged. I think that was alluded to earlier. I mean, in Patty B's case, because it's most salient, he's literally a short walk to his competition across the road on the Will Cook line. So he is absolutely disadvantaged by what we face here in Orland, Cook County broadly. I've said this repeatedly. I'm adamant about this. I'll say it again. The last thing I want to see in Orland Park is electronic signs, right? I've taken a lot of grief from the business community about that. I'm simply not voting for electronic signs. Therefore, and I had some of the folks on the phone today quote me, and I said, yeah, Bedford Falls, Pottersville, right? We're not going there. I'm not going to ruin Orland Park by allowing any kind of electronic signs. Just not interested, just not going to happen. And you know what? Broadly, I think most people would agree, and I think including the small business owners don't necessarily want that either, right? The issue for me was never the revenue. Let's just agree that it's $400,000. Sounds like a lot of money, but I got a question for Anne Marie. Roughly, what's our projected loss in sales tax revenue? Roughly. So, 800 grand. So by the end of this year, the finance has been working on this one, so they're doing their due diligence. With Babies R Us, Toys R Us, Sears, and Carson's, we could be looking at having $800,000 less in sales tax revenue than we did before. So, is it Olson? Is Greg Olson here? Yeah. So he sent me an email this morning, and we kind of had a good back and forth, and he said, I'd rather see a tax increase. And I said, may I quote you on that? And so I thought that was kind of interesting. And the reason I tell you that story is not that he alone wants to volunteer all of us for a tax increase, but there was, I think, openness to this is a community thing that we need to solve. Small businesses are hurting. Gaming is an option. It's legalized by the state of Illinois, and we're in a sea of it. So we've got a challenge we need to work through. So he did give me permission, by the way, to quote him at a public meeting. And all of us, we've been trying to work the problem, right? I've said before, and I'll say it again, none of us want to screw up this town. I spent 30 years up here. Thank you very much for that. Nobody wants to blow up what Orland is. I heard a lot of stories today about people, I came to Orland for these reasons, and I kind of rattled through them. And I said, here's what we're facing. What do I say to the small businesses? And a number of them came back and said, well, let's find other ways to help our small business, not necessarily gaming. Back to, I don't want flashy signs. I don't want this interrupting me and my children when I go for a breakfast or a lunch or some such. So it was heartfelt, and it was good feedback. Fact set, we talked about that. The referendums were close. We've heard some feedback that maybe some people didn't quite. One woman said, listen, I gamble, but I think I voted against myself. I heard that this morning from one person I spoke with. So yeah, as Mike Carroll said, there's some puts and takes on exactly what those numbers tell us, which is why we're having a discussion. And it's going to continue to be a discussion if I have my druthers, right? We had talked about one of my pet issues was if we do this, we're going to put a sticker on every door, so if you so hate the idea of video gaming, don't cross that threshold. Take your business elsewhere, because those business owners, if I may, are going to figure out pretty damn quick if they want your business or not, given that they put gaming in their business. And I'd like to encourage everybody basically to read this ordinance. We're not done here tonight, as you might sense. I think we need to keep talking about this as a community. I didn't know until recently that Ashford House on 159th there in their 80th has gaming. They kind of got it tucked around the corner. I took my son the other day to Mindy's. It was our sort of man cave night, and we popped down to Mindy's because he likes some of their menu items. Didn't know they had gaming either until I saw their sign, which they had recently installed inside their building, but it's now clear that says they have slots. I don't have an answer for that. Personally, I don't gamble. I've been pretty harsh in my comments before about people who are gambling, but I also get it's not going to be the end of Western civilization as we know it, but I don't want to ruin my town. So you put all that together, and as Carol said, there's still some open technical questions. The biggest concern I have is this, that if we as a community figure out we're going to allow some gaming, can you only allow some gaming, or do you throw open the floodgates? And then I think a technical term in politics is you're screwed, right? I'm worried about that. Nobody wants just the proliferation of video gaming in Orland. Not me, not anybody on this board. Nobody wants to see some of our businesses get hurt because they're competitively disadvantaged. I don't have a perfect answer. I'm willing to keep talking about it openly. My home phone number is published. People have been reaching out to me in email. We'll keep talking about it. And when we get done with our board comments, if the rest of the board is amenable to it, I wouldn't mind a counter motion to table. So as a community, we keep talking about this. That's where I'm at.
Trustee Fenton?
I'll keep my comments short because basically Trustee Dodge basically said about everything that I probably would say. I did have an opportunity to speak to a lot of individuals who really wanted to vote on the referendum, but they don't vote in primaries. I personally went early voted, asked for a nonpartisan ballot. The poor lady about fell over because she looked at me like I had 6 heads because people apparently don't ask for that. I just wanted to vote on the referendum. I know people who on election day asked for that and were told they didn't have any, and they walked out, so they didn't get the opportunity to vote. So, and having the double question on there was confusing for some people. Maybe it wasn't confusing for people sitting here, but I know a lot of people that were confused about it. I had a conversation with a gentleman today about that. So right there, that's one point that, to me, had a lot of problems with it. There was also a lot of misinformation in the emails that I received. By the way, I might not respond to all those emails, but I read every single one of them. And I found a lot of misinformation, and I think that's sad. I think it's also sad, I hate to say this to staff, but that new ordinance should have been on that website for people to access and look at what the changes were that the board made. And maybe you would have different opinions if you read what the ordinance says that's in there tonight. The fact that we don't want electronic signs, I go along with Trustee Dodge and everybody else sitting up on here. That's not going to happen. I know it's at the Plan Commission right now. It was brought up. It's not going to happen. We don't want that. We don't want flashing of anything, whether it's for a bank or if it's for gaming. It's going to be a case of you're not going to know gaming would be at that establishment unless you walked to the door and saw that sign. And then I guess I have to look at, my husband and I had 2 small businesses, and we struggled. It's hard out there. I know most of these people as personal friends. And I would hate to say it, and I've said this to several of my friends that might be against it, they don't go to any of those establishments anyway. So, I mean, as a small business owner, it's hard. It is very hard, and especially in today's economy. My other issue is, like Trustee Ruzick said, we were supposed to get that legal opinion on whether or not we could put a cap on this. There's no way that I would have approved 67 licenses. Absolutely not. That's not what's up for us tonight, but we wanted to put a cap on it. I've already gotten word on the street that if we don't allow everybody to get it, we're going to be sued. Well, you know what? That was a stupid mistake to say, because that would just turn all of our votes if you're going to be out there threatening us. It's not right. If you want this to be done the right way, we need to be all working together to come up with a great way to keep our community. There is no way do I want our community to look like some of the communities that I drive through that allow gaming. That's not my purpose for being here. I didn't spend 25 years here on this board to see this community go down the tubes because we allowed gaming. And I know our mom and pop businesses, they don't want that either. They want their reputation to be maintained within this community, and that's what we want. I don't think we're ready tonight to even vote on this. I go along with Trustee Dodge on this. We need to table this, not 2 weeks from now, but indefinitely until we can get more answers and work together. And I still think the referendum was a mistake on the primary ballot. Number one, 2 questions, and a lot of people don't vote in referendums, therefore, in primaries. So you took their opportunity to speak their voice. So I would go along with Trustee Dodge with the postponing the vote.
Any other comments? So I'll make my comments. Yeah, people feel very strongly about their position on either side, and I get it. And it's a challenging issue. It's a near 50-50 issue in this town, pretty much. Everything we've heard from people speaking to emails, even with all the flood of emails today, it's still pretty close to a 50-50 issue any way you slice it. I also grew up here, and I chose to move my family back here. I didn't choose to run for this office because I didn't love Orland Park. So, like all the people up here, I love Orland Park. A little history. The state of Illinois passed a law allowing video gaming in 2009. At that time, our village board made the correct decision to not allow video gaming. Had no idea what it would entail. It's now 2018. More than 80% of Illinois communities allow video gaming. My position on this issue has always been that I am not philosophically opposed to video gaming as long as it is tightly controlled. Our ordinance that we've drafted is the most restrictive ordinance that's in existence in the state. I too have concerns about how we limit the establishments. I think so my understanding is we can limit the establishments, but the question is how do you limit them out of the box and decide who's a winner and who's a loser? And I think that is not clear and not clearly determined. My understanding is there's 22 potential businesses that would want this at this particular juncture. Yeah, not sure. And most of those, with the exception of 1 or 2, are not corporate. They're small business owned. But also, this was not a priority issue for me. So I didn't push this issue forward. However, my position has always been if it was put forward, we had to hold several public meetings and meet with the clergy, and we did that. To answer a question that was brought up as far as the crime issue and a riverboat, nobody here is looking to put a riverboat. And I'm not sure where the river would be that we'd put it. Crime, we had the chief of police call the local communities and talk about crime, and there's none of the communities that surrounding us have reported any increase in crime that is attributable to gaming. Now, that does not speak to what could be happening behind closed doors, but that's what the police reported back to us. Ironically, for those of you against gaming, this is on the agenda because it was put on the agenda by someone who's against gaming, to have us vote initially on an ordinance that already existed. I'm not sure what the motivation to put an issue on the agenda that already existed was. I didn't put it on the agenda. None of these trustees put it on the agenda. It was a surprise to all of us when it showed up on the agenda. Once it was, we were, as a board, forced to address the issue. A lot of people on both sides of the issue coming at us on a regular basis, we had to address it. That's what we get elected to do, is to address these issues. Before commenting specifically on gaming, I'll comment on referendums in general. They're popular, but usually from groups of people who don't like a particular outcome or who are afraid a vote won't go their way. We are a representative republic, and referendums, in my opinion, undermine representative democracy by undermining the role and importance of the elected officials which you elected to be here. They are attacked, specifically in Illinois, they are a tactical device used by politicians all the time. They tend not to be about the issue at hand, but much more about the politics, and can I drive out votes, and can I address things for the future. They are rarely put on the ballot in the interest of the people, but instead are political tools. to try to drive behavior and stir emotion over divisive issues. Specifically, I'll comment on gaming. There have been issues raised on both sides during this process. The character of our community will change. Nobody has given me a concrete example of a village that has a significant change of character due to video gaming. And everyone on this board agrees to restrict this legally as much as we possibly can. I've heard in some of these emails they said that there's false information. We will have gaming cafes, gaming and gas stations, and flashing signs everywhere. We have several restrictions. Class A liquor license holders only, which means only restaurants with bars. And 18-month waiting periods, which keeps those gaming cafes out. We also are not going to allow them in gas stations or convenience stores. They also have to comply with our signage code, which don't allow for electronic signs, and no one on this board is willing to put electronic signs in. I won't go to a place with a sticker in the window that has gaming. That's exactly the point. If you don't want to patronize a business that has video gaming, then don't. To the point made earlier, I'm betting most of you don't go to the very places that want to have it. Their relationship is between the businesses and their customers. It's not between the businesses, the customers, and the village. Some people have expressed moral outrage. For some of you, this is absolutely understandable. However, the majority of you that have given me the moral outrage speech have also pointed out that you gamble in Vegas, you play the lottery, you play Super Bowl pools, you play the March Madness pools. It's a hard argument for me to bridge if you support some form of gaming but not others. Where do you draw the line? Orland Park residents are taking business to other towns. This is one of my concerns and one from the board as well. I've heard from customers and businesses alike that this is the case. I would rather that Orland Park business stays in Orland Park. Orland Park businesses are at a disadvantage. This is also a concern. I have noticed that several people against gaming also were big supporters of higher minimum wage and sick pay in Cook County. That those don't help businesses either. I've also heard that these businesses should be better so they can compete. The people who say that don't understand business. Government can drive business away by creating an unlevel playing field. See Cook County, see Illinois. I want to make it easier for our local businesses to compete. Over 90% of the restaurants that have indicated interest in gaming are locally owned. Local business profits stay in Orland Park. With that said, I also personally believe that some of the businesses that have said they want gaming will hurt their businesses by adding it. Other towns have seen that, and I think we will too. The market will sort this out, and those restaurants will likely pull those machines out when they see that they hurt their business. The bottom line here, businesses and customers are free to make their own decisions. Gambling addiction that will increase in Orland Park and the social costs. I agree wholeheartedly that addiction is a problem and a concern. Personally, I think Illinois made a mistake by approving gambling to solve its fiscal issues in the first place. I think the problems at a statewide level way outweigh the benefits. However, Illinois passed it, and unfortunately it surrounds us and it's been stuck in our lap, so now we have to deal with it. I hate to break it to everyone here, those addicted in Orland Park, they already live here. They can go 50 feet in 3 directions and gamble outside of Orland Park. So those people are already here. Given that, I don't believe that gaming in Orland Park is going to add to the problem. The problem already exists because we're surrounded by it. Lastly, there's an opinion that there was a vote on the referendum and we should follow that vote. Let me point out a few facts on the referendum. And I'm going to stick a little closer to home than Europe. The election results of the village's referendum were 6,014 to allow and 6264 against, 49% to 51%, with a turnout of about 25%. That's 13% of the voting age population supporting a position is definitely not a mandate, particularly on an advisory referendum. I want to point out that a non-binding referendum was also on the ballot for legalizing cannabis. It passed 54 to 46% in Orland Park. For those of you who say we must follow the referendum using your logic, then I assume you're even more adamant that the board legalize pot. And I can tell you, for those of you who support it, that's not happening, and I don't think anyone on the board supports it. So
Tax it.
Several larger issues in this town were never put to a referendum. We've spent $150 million on the Triangle Project, and I'm not speaking as to whether these are good or bad. They were never put to a referendum. We put a loan for $64 million on a $65 million project on 9750, which we all got out of this last year. Orland Square Mall, which wouldn't have been put in if it went to a referendum. You think this is outrage? We had 6,000 people in this town, and they were all outraged about putting that in. Everyone who ran for the next election got defeated. And think about where this town would be without the mall. How does everyone in here feel about the Sportsplex? You like it? I think most people like it. It was also up for a referendum. 7,864 votes to support it and 95-19 against it. 45% for, 55% against, with a turnout over 50%, over double what we saw in this last election. The board voted to put the Sportsplex in anyways. Overall, this issue is very evenly divided. We've had 3 town halls, emails, letters, and the polls. It's an issue that is a 50-50 issue with a motion on both sides. Since this was put on the agenda as a political issue until the board deals with it, it will continue to be made a political hot potato until it is resolved, which is why I'm not for tabling it, and I would like to see a vote cast tonight, because one way or another, we need to resolve this issue. Sometimes elected officials need to make hard votes. My position has remained consistent on this issue since I was first asked during the last campaign. It's not a priority issue, but if it comes before me, it warrants significant public discussion, which we certainly have had 4 other times besides tonight. I also believe that Illinois did the wrong thing with gambling statewide, but I'm not philosophically or morally opposed to it, but it's got to be tightly controlled, which I think we're doing here. As noted, we have the most restrictive gaming ordinance in the state of Illinois if this passes. Regardless, this vote is very hard for all of us on this board floor. I'm no exception to that, because we see both sides of the issue. Regardless of how each trustee votes, I know that it has been given a lot of thought, and there are valid reasons to vote either way. And with that,
Mr. Chairman,
Trustee Dodge.
motion to table.
Any comments? Call the roll.
Trustee Dodge.
Aye.
Trustee Fenton.
Aye.
Trustee Guerra.
Aye.
Trustee Rusick.
Aye.
Trustee Calandrello.
No.
Trustee Carroll.
No.
Mayor Peacock.
No. So with that, the motion to table carries 4-3.
Position of village president ordinance.
Should we, Mayor Peacock,
Trustee Dodge.
should we explain, just in case it's unclear, what we just did? So-
Sure. So what was decided was to table this, so the discussion has already been started, and so this motion has been tabled to be brought up at another date, but not a date certain, so it could be brought up at any future meeting once decided.
Good. Ready?
Can you call it?
So, Pat, when he called the item, he called the item.
Did you call again?
Sorry.
Call again.
Ordinance, position of village presidents and ordinance.
Trustee Guerra.
Ordinance number, please.
5297.
5297. I move to pass ordinance number 5297 entitled, "An Ordinance Providing for the Compensation and Reimbursement of the Village President of the Village of Orland Park, Cook and Will Counties, Illinois."
Do I hear a second? Again, do I hear a second? The motion has been moved but not seconded. Move on to the next agenda item.
Amended Title VII, Chapter 4, number of Class C liquor license and ordinance.
Ordinance, Mr. Chairman, could I get an ordinance number?
5298.
I move to pass ordinance number 5298 entitled, "An Ordinance Amending Title VII, Chapter 4 of the Orland Park Municipal Code regarding the available number of Class C liquor licenses issued by the Village of Orland Park, Cook and Will Counties, Illinois."
Second.
Any questions or comments? Call the roll.
Trustee Rusick.
Aye.
Trustee Carroll.
Aye.
Trustee Fenton.
Aye.
Trustee Dodge.
Aye.
Trustee Guerra.
Aye.
Trustee Calandrello.
Aye.
Mayor Peacock.
Aye.
Amend Title VII, Chapter 4, number of Class B liquor license and ordinance.
Mr. Chairman,
Trustee Fenton.
move to pass ordinance number 5299 entitled, "An Ordinance Amending Title VII, Chapter 4 of the Orland Park Municipal Code regarding the available number of Class B liquor licenses issued by the Village of Orland Park, Cook and Will Counties, Illinois."
Second.
Any questions or comments? Call the roll.
Trustee Fenton.
Aye.
Trustee Guerra.
Aye.
Trustee Dodge.
Aye.
Trustee Rusick.
Aye.
Trustee Calandrello.
No.
Trustee Carroll.
Aye.
Mayor Peacock.
Aye.
Southwest Conference of Mayors Annual Annual Legislative Day in Springfield, Illinois. Update.
So I want to give everybody an update on my trip last week, mine and Joe Margo's trip to the State House last week. So some key issues going on in the state, which you guys are familiar with, but should probably be reiterated to the public. The LDGF, which is our distributive fund of income tax, is still looks to be cut 10%. So the state raised the income tax by 67%, but right now it looks like our distributed share will be about 10% lower overall, and it looks like with their new formulas and how they're calculating, that's about what it turns out to be from a per-person perspective in Orland Park. Also, the 2% charge they're giving us on sales tax, they are also continuing to do. There has been some idea of reducing it to 1%. So in other words, they take away a bunch of stuff and then they're going to give us a little bit back, and we're supposed to be happy about it. And one of the comments that was made was, we've generated $80 million from this. Let's be clear, they've taken $80 million from this. They did not generate an additional dime. They just took it from all the municipalities. And it hurts us a lot. There are other towns it crushes because they don't have the wherewithal that we have. So it is bad policy, and basically the state is trying to balance their budget on our backs. In total, it's I think projected, Anne Marie, this year to be about $1 million between the two. The 2% and the LDGF about $1 million that we're going to take in a loss this year, thanks to the state. We lobbied all of our state reps, and we heard that they're interested, but they also want to point fingers at the other side. And quite frankly, I don't care what side you're sitting on as a local government official. It's both sides. It's Republicans down there. It's Democrats down there. It's both sides of the aisle that are screwing this up, and they're trying to do it on the backs of the municipalities. We also got some updates on IDOT, and we lobbied for some other IDOT projects. We at least didn't get any bad news on 159th, maybe some positive news, but we'll see how that transpires over time. But hopefully it certainly hasn't been slipped any, so hopefully at least it stays on time, which is a this year opening all the way to 355, and that's the latest update that we received. One of the other problems there are bills, a lot of bills, that are put forth all the time. But there are over 140 of those bills that directly affect municipalities and are unfunded mandates. So these are things we will have to do and comply with, but we have no funding to do. So we pushed very hard against that. I think you'll particularly like one of the bills that they put forth, which was that the state of Illinois proposes to give newly elected officials training on how government operates, which I found that very interesting, considering they're $14 billion behind in their bills, haven't balanced the budget in I don't know how long, and they're going to tell local governments how to operate more effectively? That was pretty laughable. And local governments work. A lot of them are facing a lot of difficulties, but they work. Pensions continue to be an issue. One of the pension fixes should be a no-brainer, and it's not getting traction. It doesn't impact us as much as it does downstate and other small municipalities, but it was to allow them to combine their fire and police pension funds. It doesn't reduce any of their benefits, and right now, for example, some of the municipalities around us are so small that they're restricted that they can only invest in muni bonds, so they actually earn less in return than what their administrative fees are in some cases. So by pooling theirs together, they would get much better fees and they would get much better returns. Orland Park doesn't suffer from that because we're a little bit bigger, but nonetheless, it would still be something that should be a no-brainer for them to actually enact. And then the cost of government, it's interesting, I have a sheet here somewhere. So one of the speakers gave me the sheet of where the money goes. In this square up in the upper corner, cost of government operations for the state of Illinois is 11.1%. That's the operations of the state, is just 11% of the budget. The other 89% go to pensions, Medicaid, debt service. You get the point. So the point here is that local government works. Tonight worked. Whether you like the outcome of the gaming thing or you don't like the outcome, people spoke, trustees were thoughtful, and we operate much more effectively. So we will continue as a village to lobby the state and continue to try and get legislation that's a little bit more beneficial, and more importantly, I think these days, is to stop legislation that will be harmful. Any questions for me?
Extension of lease with Southwest Community Concert Band, an Illinois not-for-profit corporation.
Mr. Chairman,
Trustee Carroll.
I move to approve the extension of lease with Southwest Community Concert Band until February 19th, 2020.
Second.
Any questions or comments?
Mr. Chairman, just a quick question for staff. I know that we're all in favor, I'm all in favor of renewing the lease. There was some issue with storage, though. Are we still okay with them storing all their equipment there, or is that something we need to address?
That has not posed a problem.
We're all good?
We monitor it.
Okay.
They've been very cooperative with us.
All right.
Any other questions or comments? Call the roll.
Trustee Carroll.
Aye.
Trustee Dodge.
Aye.
Trustee Fenton.
Aye.
Trustee Guerra.
Aye.
Trustee Rusick.
Aye.
Trustee Calandrella.
Aye.
Mayor Pico.
Aye.
You ready for board comments?
Board comments, Trustee Guerra.
My only comment would be the motion that was on the agenda tonight for the village president was only intended to restore the mayor's position to part-time. I think we have seen much confusion with this new role. The change would not take place until after the next mayoral election. I'm frankly a little surprised, Mr. Mayor, because I thought this was one of the keystones of your campaign, to restore the position to part-time. That's all.
And I forgot to, we have a few more people here to speak. So Pete Collins.
Hello again. If I can just get some clarification on that, what's going to happen to that item that didn't get seconded? Is that going to come up?
Died for lack of a second.
Okay. I just wanted to, I do have a copy of the latest gaming referendum, or not referendum, but ordinance, thank you. I think you guys covered what my main concern was with the limit of 20 to begin with, and then whatever's going to happen after that. There was also an issue in there of a restriction of of establishments that were within 100 feet of a school or place of worship. And I don't know if any of you have been walking around, but there's not a building or anything within 100 feet of a school. So you may want to take a look at that. I do want to thank you, because I know that you may not agree with how this came about and how this came onto your plate, but the fact of the matter is that it was all part of what was allowable within the process. And you've provided us an opportunity on 3 town hall occasions to come up and speak what we need to say what we have to say. You listened to us, you let us do that, you responded to us, and you've had an open discussion and allowed us to speak our minds. So for that, I thank you. However, the fact that the clerk, who doesn't have a voice on the dais, may have put this on the agenda, was perfectly within, at that time, the right to do that. To say that that was a surprise to anybody, to say that it's an issue that you were surprised to see about, I don't really buy that, because you've said that you've been thinking about this for years. You know, you've been talking to people for some time before this happened. And for the clerk to come down off the dais to be able to give his voice and his opinion, he doesn't lose that. He's a citizen first. He doesn't lose his right to come down and say and speak his mind and give his opinion on one subject or another. So to bash him here or online is something that I would hope that you would reconsider if you're doing that. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Arnold Gackey?
Good evening. Good evening.
Good evening.
7 wise persons. 7 wise people. You did make a decision to make a decision. Okay. Thank you, Kathy, for your 25 years. Everything about video gaming or video gaming has been said. So I'll save my comments for another night. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Jack Smith?
I guess it's evening, so good evening, everybody.
Definitely morning yet.
As most of you know, I sit on the Economic Development Board. What a lot of you know is that this is my second go-round. I sat on it under Mayor Fred also, who came to me and asked me to help him a long time ago. I'm not here in that regard. I'm here as an Orland Park citizen since 1972, worked and lived here. I talk to you as a person who taught kids for 12 years how to play football in the Pioneer program. Also for 8 years in the wrestling program, which everybody loves that Sandberg wins so much at wrestling. Somebody ought to give an award to Joel Thole, because he's been down here with the kids for 40 years. And his dad, I played on the football field that's named after him back when I was a kid. Just a hint. What I'm really here for is, I guess, I'm kind of the Sunday brunch guy that goes to all the local restaurants and get my politics through that medium, good or bad. And I've heard the reasons why we increased it to full-time with pay. Obviously, you know, the old story that Dan was retiring from the Chicago Plumbers Union and, of course, needed to make that compensation up because he was retiring. I hope that's not true, and I don't believe it, but you guys did come to a consensus that we needed a full-time person and that we should pay that person. All right? Now, if we've seen anything through this year, as a part-timer, you can't really cover every aspect of the economy of the village. We're seeing it pretty badly now. I mean, I drove by the Orland Park Bakery, and that's the only business in that mall. I've driven by restaurants down by the movie theater that are empty. We're starting to turn. And this is not the time to have a part-time person who comes in for a few hours. This is a job that's going to have to take a lot, not only a mayor, but you guys too, to step up. We always commend the staff, and I deal with a few of the people of staff. They are spectacular.
30 seconds.
They know their job. Thank you. So I'll end it rather briefly. As a person who lives in Orland, who works in Orland, who brought my business here, who's raised all my children, I think this is the time you guys need to step up and say, hey, we need leadership and we need it for however many hours it is, not 2. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Jack Craven. Okay. So board comments, Mike Carroll, or Trustee Carroll.
No comments, Mr. Chairman, thank you.
Trustee Dodge?
Just, we have work to do. The video gaming issue we all talked about earlier, I'm definitely going to encourage and recommend that we get it as quickly as possible on the web so people can see what we did, because I think this discussion is going to rage for a while longer. Good points were made both sides, and I think the only thing we really can do is, this is a community issue, right? As I said earlier, people are concerned about what may happen. We want to be sensitive to the needs of the local business. We also want to be careful with what it does to Orland. So I look, we're going to have to keep working on it, and I hope people continue to flow their feedback to the village board as we wrestle with this issue, and we march on.
Trustee Fenton?
I just wanted to once again thank everyone for giving me the opportunity to serve as long as I have. And I do enjoy, I don't enjoy making tough decisions like tonight, but I always have the heart of not only the businesses but the residents when I do make my final decisions and vote, because that's why we're all appointed up here. We're here to represent the people, all the people, not just some people, but all the people and all the residents, including businesses. We have to keep that in mind, and I'm glad that we are going to get some more information and find out legally what we can and cannot do. If we can do what's in that ordinance, then, as the mayor said, we will have the strictest ordinance in the state of Illinois, which hopefully will be a model for a few other towns that are considering it also.
Trustee Canangelo.
First of all, I want to thank everyone for coming for a spirited debate. I know we have some work to do, so I look forward to doing that. I just wanted to make 2 quick comments. I know we have some new people here, so the reason why I voted no on the liquor license, I don't think liquor license should be in gas stations. There's an expansion that I don't believe in. That's why I voted no. I know we have a couple people who don't understand that, and I've previously voted no on gas stations for liquors. And then I'd also, just to correct the record, that I agreed with the mayor that we should do our concerts in the park, but I did in the conversations in the board floor, I think we'll try to do it this year, and that's what we tried, and I just want to correct the record. So, thank you everyone for coming today. Spirited debate, I guess, to be continued. So everyone have a good night.
Trustee Ruzick.
I just want to make a comment on the one item that Trustee Gira put for a vote that wasn't seconded, which is the issue of the position of the mayor being full-time versus part-time. So this was one of the first discussions that the mayor and I talked about when we met a couple of days after his election, and talked about what would be the appropriate timing to visit this issue. And I think he agreed, and I agreed with him, that it would be a couple of years we would need to figure this out. So the reason I didn't second the motion tonight was because I think it's just too soon. I was a big proponent of having a full-time mayor back when we voted on that a year ago, October, 18 months ago. And I think it's the position, whoever is on this board in 2 years or 2.5 years should make that decision. There's nothing that could be affecting the current mayor. It would be for a future mayor. So that is the reason why I think it was just premature, and why I think most of the board members obviously felt that way too. It's a discussion that will take place again sometime, and the mayor will have his input on it. I think it's not been a perfect year by any by anyone's imagination. We have a new mayor and we have a new village manager. And no matter who was in those positions, we would have had some bumps along the road. But I'm confident that, things are going to smooth out in the next couple of years, and we'll reevaluate it then. That's it.
So my comments, so it would seem that the trustees did heed the concerns of the people, and I think made the correct decision to table a discussion about performance and the position, because I answer to the people of Orland Park and not the trustees, just as the trustees answer to the people of Orland Park and not to me. The referendum on our performance comes through elections. That's the foundation of our representative democracy. However, since the genie was let out of the bottle, I believe it brings into question the original decision to make the position of mayor full-time without changing the form of government. After serving in this position for a year, I am uniquely qualified to judge both. A mayor can certainly earn the salary the board voted on prior to my election, and there's plenty of work for a full-time mayor, which I said during the election. In this case, given the makeup of the board versus one change agent, which was voted on, which is me, put in place by a substantial majority, being full-time has allowed me to work through a lot of obstacles this past year, and when I say obstacles, I don't mean, looking right and left. Look at all that's going on that we heard about, closures, et cetera, and those types of things. So there's a lot of things that have needed to be worked through. And in spite of the differences we may have had on this board floor, we've been able to accomplish a lot. And it may have taken a while to get some of those things accomplished, but they got accomplished nonetheless. We exited 9750, which reduced our debt by about $50 million. We reduced our operating budget by approximately 2%. We opted out of several Cook County mandates, worked with Commissioner Morrison to get that horrible sugary beverage tax repealed. We revamped our citizen commission and advisory boards. Just last month, we saw 4 new restaurants open, and there's a few others coming in the coming year. We have a $40 million going into Orland Square Mall to proactively replace Sears and not asking for any incentives. We provided relief to Hurricane Harvey victims, something that the staff turned around in very short order. We've also moved forward on an RFQ and RFP process to develop the entire triangle, not piece by piece, but the whole thing, and we're moving forward with 2 developers. The problem is that the statutory manager-council form of government and a full-time mayor are definitely inconsistent with one another. But it is what we're going to have for the next 3 years. Before making the mayor position full-time, the current form of government in Orland Park should have been examined. The main idea behind this form of government is it eliminates the politics by hiring a professional manager. By law, the salary will remain in place for the remainder of my mayoral term. In my opinion, if the form of government stays the same, then it should go back to part-time and remain consistent with our form of government. However, if the form of government changes in some way, then the mayor's position can adapt in whatever way is consistent with the form of government. That's not for me to decide. But to me, that's what's inconsistent about the current situation. There are really 5 basic forms of government, and it's up to the people to do what they think is best in the best interest of the Village of Orland Park. Regardless of the outcome of this discussion and the resulting mayor's role, one thing is for sure, elected officials shouldn't be pension eligible, because that eliminates any problems like what we saw. Additionally, I think it's important that the board going forward, we need to step forward and actually take votes on issues. Not seconding the gaming ordinance is a little concerning to me. Let's have the discussion. If we didn't second it, it would have been the same issue as my pay, and it would have just stopped right there, and we wouldn't have had any discussion whatsoever. We pushed for a concert for a long time, but then we don't pull the trigger when we get there. And I heard a lot of discussion tonight about being afraid of this bad thing has happened and that bad thing has happened, and we have a lot of things to worry about. Sure we do. But Orland Park has a ton going for it. Everyone's aware of the closings, everyone's aware of the lost sales tax, everyone's aware of the state and the issues that they have, but in spite of this, our outlook is immensely positive. You don't have to go any further than the mall. Look at the $40 million investment someone decided to put in Orland Park with no money asking from us at all. That speaks volumes for what Orland Park is and what investors think of our town. Having 2 full proposals, we had 6 proposals for the RFQ and the RFP. 2 of them are moving on to develop that whole site. That speaks volumes for what a great place to invest Orland Park is. The number of restaurants we've had open in recent times, the amount of money that the mall is investing in their mall, adding another restaurant there. Again, all that speaks volumes. Just to put it in perspective, Carson's was the number 5 store in their whole portfolio. In all of Simon's stores, it was the number 1 store. Toys R Us was the number 1 store in the entire country. They didn't close because Orland Park was a problem. They closed because their entire business was sick. We were the shining star inside of their portfolios. Something will replace them. If they have to go through bankruptcy, it'll take a little time, but something will replace them. So there are a lot of issues that we have to work through as a board, but we should not be afraid that Orland Park has seen its best years, because it hasn't. We will change a lot in the next 3 years. There is no question. But when we come out on the other side, we will be set for the next 20. That's what's important. Thank you, and with that, we'll move to go to closed session. I'll entertain a motion to go to closed session.
Mr. Chairman,
Trustee Fenton?
move to go to executive session for A, approval of minutes, B, appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performances,
Don't
or
leave.
dismissal of specific village employees, and C, setting a price for sale or lease of village property.
Please.
Call the roll.
Trustee Fenton?
Aye.
Trustee Calendrello?
Aye.
Trustee Dodge?
Aye.
Trustee Gira?
Aye.
Trustee Rusick?
Aye.
Trustee Carroll?
Aye.
Mayor Pico?
Aye.
Yeah, Casey's supposed to collect her. Sure.